sorry. Because it would have been nice to see the story of Daniel. You know the story, of course, right? Daniel. Interesting guy. And the story for all of us is a bit about inspiration. And what in the world is inspiration? We take a lot of stuff from outside in our daily activities, don't we? We look around and try and figure out how things work with our eyes, sometimes with our hands. But inspiration is from within, comes from within. God breathed into man, making him a living being. It is that Spirit of God that is implanted in each one of us. And it is from that wind Spirit of God that we are inspired. So I think if I wanted to make a definition of inspiration, and golly knows I wouldn't be the best at doing that, but I'll make an attempt. And I would say perhaps it's the experience. Inspiration is the experience of the infinite mind, God mind, with flashes of brilliant and powerful, freeing ideas that hopefully find a home, a workshop within your being, a place to take up residence and be nurtured and grow and bear fruit in your life. That'd be pretty good. You've been inspired a time or two in your life, have you not? Sure. It happens. And blessed are we when we pay attention to that inspiration. And then there are other times where we get it, and what's our first thought? Oh, that was just a thought. I have a clue for myself. I'll get a flash of something, and then I'll say, oh, don't be silly. Pay attention. Pay attention. Who needs inspiration? I know we like to think that creative people like artists and actors and musicians, poets, writers, they all need inspiration, right? But what about us? What about us in our day-to-day activities? We need continuity of inspiration, meaning all the time, right? We also need it in chaos. You ever have chaos in your life? Oh no? You're one of those blessed souls. Never had. Yeah, we need it in chaos, and golly knows, I have to say that correctly. Chaos. Carolyn and I had a wonderful Kabbalah teacher from Israel who always pronounced the word chaos as chaos. Yeah. And it was just wonderful to hear how that kind of spilled trippingly off his tongue. Yeah. Had some live classes with him, and then we did a lot of internet and recorded DVD classes. Eitan Yardeni. I will tell you the truth, Carolyn was in love with him. Didn't do her any good, but she was in love with him. Yeah. He was a good guy. Chaos. We need inspiration in chaos, but we also need, I'm going to call it continuity of inspiration in our general daily activities, both kinds. Now, the story of Daniel contains both threads. He's inspired in chaos, and he has it. Trust me, he gets it. He experiences it. And he also needs it in his day-to-day activities. You maybe remember some of his story. There was a King Belshazzar, and this is just background information. Belshazzar had you heard the story, you've heard the expression, the writing on the wall. Well, the story is in the Bible here in the book of Daniel, chapter 5. And Belshazzar had writing appear on the wall in his palace, and it was not so good for him. He didn't understand exactly what it meant, but he heard that Daniel, who was a pretty good psychic at that time, I would say, was able to interpret things. So here were these words, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin. And he got Daniel to come and to interpret the words. And he says a lot of things that I think were not real popular. It didn't make the king really happy. God, in whose hand is your breath, and whose are all your ways, you have not honored, Daniel said to him. Then from his presence the hand was sent, and this writing was inscribed, and this is the writing that was inscribed, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin. This is the interpretation of the matter. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found one thing. And then the new word they use is Paris. Your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Well, the king had promised him to be clothed in purple and a chain of gold put around him, a place of authority. And he honored his promise. He called for the purple to be put on him and the chain of gold. And he made a proclamation concerning Daniel. Since Daniel was such an astute psychic, so intuitive, so inspired, that he would be the third ruler of the kingdom. Well, that very night, Belshazzar was slain. Darius, the Median, received the kingdom, and Darius, in taking over, he put 120 satraps or princes over the kingdom. There were still 3 presidents. Daniel was one of those 3 presidents. But you know how things happen when you have a change of regime. People get willful. And here was Daniel with a prized position. So these princes wanted to get rid of him. Well, how shall we do that? Well, they knew that Daniel was committed to his God. He prayed 3 times a day. What did he pray? He prayed the Shema. Remember the Shema? You find the Shema in the 6th chapter of Deuteronomy. I know it's one of your favorite books. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Shema Israel, the first words. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart, and you shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. Daniel prayed the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Adonai Echad, Lord is one. He prayed it 3 times a day. So these princes got a great idea. It was a law in this land that when the king made a decree, it was inviolate. It had to be upheld. And he made it, they went to him and they talked him into making a decree that anyone who prayed to, brought forth any case, made any proclamation to anyone but the king for 30 days would be in serious trouble. Well, so the king agreed to this, became law, and apparently even the law that the king had to follow. Now the king liked Daniel. He really did. After this decree, Daniel was in his room, a room with what's called in the Bible an open window in some versions. I like the idea of open window, the idea that it was open to the wind from Jerusalem. What's that wind? The Spirit of God coming into the mind, the heart. So these 3 times a day when he was in prayer, he was open and receptive. His window was open. He was open to the inspiration and guidance of his Creator, of a higher power. A wonderful story so far, yes? Well, leave it up to the princes. Hey, king. Yeah? Remember that law you passed? Yeah. You know, you have to uphold it. Yeah. And it went for 30 days. Yes. Well, your friend Daniel. Yes. He what? He sought counsel and word with his God, and not you, my Lord. He did. Yes, he did. You must throw him in the lion's den. I must. I must. It's the law. So he had Daniel thrown in that wonderful place. You know, ever been in a lion's den? Of course you have. Of course you have. See, Daniel, he's faithful. He's open and receptive to guidance and direction. He's willing. Darius, the king, represents the faculty of will. And in the early part of the story, when he does make this law, following all of the talk of his princes, well, we get into that same kind of position where we get swayed by the various negative and limited concepts that come through our minds and our limited ideas about a situation, about people, about events, about God. And we begin to go along with that because we think we have to, because we don't think that we have a choice. We forget that we have a choice. So, the will here followed what looked like the proper course at that point in time. Daniel goes in the lion's den. Now I know what we expect, right? We know what the princes expect. After Daniel was put in the lion's den, the king fasted. He isolated himself in his chambers. No music, no distractions, no noise, no food. It was a cleansing of the will, getting a different perspective, becoming open and receptive to divine will. And in the morning, he went to the lion's den. And he was fearful. He was afraid of what he was going to find. So he called out to Daniel. And Daniel, Daniel responded and called back. The king was surprised. And the king made this statement: "Thy God will deliver thee. Thy God has delivered thee." And perhaps in Daniel we could really make that personal. My God delivers me. My God delivers me. That's not a bad affirmation and a bad reminder when you're in chaos. I'll say that again. When you're in chaos, my God delivers me. Sometimes we just need a little shock of some truth to remind us the reality and get us focused properly. And remember, he still was doing the Shema. Hear, O Lord, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Reminding us that we are also one with the one. And that one delivers us, gives us the guidance and the inspiration to get through whatever we need to get through, whatever's before us. And sometimes it's just as simple as, what do I do here? What do I do next? Which should I buy? Ever had that dilemma? Did you ever make the wrong choice? I see some. I see it. I've made super choices, and I've made less enlightened choices in my life. Doesn't hurt to ask. Ask. So, yes, an angel came, Daniel responds, and opened my mind and shut the mouth of the lion. Truth dawned, and the truth shuts error's mouth, stills the limited negative thoughts that come to us. And what happened? Wow. The king couldn't get him out of there fast enough. Absolutely fast enough. Let's see exactly how they put that. The king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of hurt was found upon him because he had trusted in his God. And the king commanded, and those men who had accused Daniel were brought and cast into the den of lions. They, their children, and their wives. And before they reached the bottom of the den, the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces. But remember, these are not people. Metaphysically, these are symbols for things. The men represent thoughts. Yes? Thoughts. They're negative thoughts. They're thoughts that to do harm. They're thoughts that were untrue. Oh, and they have children. They have more thoughts coming that evolve out of those thoughts. And they have wives. Wives represent the subjective, the feeling nature. And what are those to us? Those are the feelings wrapped around these thoughts. Their anger, their resentment, their fear of Daniel. All of this negativity then, from the source, the thoughts, other thoughts that are derivative out of those thoughts, and the feelings that result were broken up, cleansed, removed. See, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Got to look beyond the obvious and see the symbol. So there are some wonderful ways that we can seek some inspiration. And I'm going to quote from Imelda Shanklin. Imelda Shanklin is one of my favorite Unity authors. When Charles Fillmore's name was on the masthead as editor for Unity, he was the editor in name and she was the editor in fact. Her writing is sometimes amazing. She said, inspiration is continuous. Yes, it's continuous, and that's the continuity. It's available to us at all times. Why? Because divine mind is continually expressing its intelligence, its divine ideas. They're continually available to us. And she continues by saying, work by the rule of ever readiness. Daniel was prepared. How was he prepared? Well, remember, 3 times a day he prayed. He stayed connected. He stayed reminded that he and the Father were one. One mind, one intelligence, available to him and to all. Work by the rule of ever readiness, and you will become able to command ideas that remind you of your identity. I am that I am. Your mind responds to your reliance on it. If a matter seems difficult, she says, 1, brood lightly on it. I like that word, brood. What does a brood hen do? Sits on the eggs, right? Keeps them warm. Takes care of them so that they develop and hatch into viable chicks. To brood on it is to hold it in mind, and hold it in mind with a positive attitude that this is real and this is possible and I accept it. 2, put it away in place where your mind and God mind are one. Hold it in the silence of your being. And leave it there for a season, she says. Hold it in that awareness of God. Hold it in your awareness of God mind. And it's like giving it to God and saying, okay, Lord, this I accept. I accept. And she says, number 3, take it up again and you will find it has become clear to you. After you let it sit for a season. So, thy God will deliver thee. My God is delivering me. How are you going to tap inspiration? Well, you need to build a habit for inspiration, a habit of being open and receptive and aware of it in chaos and day-to-day situations. Begin to let go of the objects, the subjects in your thinking that get in the way, that block you from realizing you are one with the free flow of divine ideas. Second way is you can practice being inspiration to others. A positive word. And not overwhelming people, but just a positive word. Encouraging others, reminding others, God is taking care of you. God is healing you. Everything's turning out for the good. Sometimes they just need to be reminded. Inspire them. And in crisis, remember, Daniel went along with the way things were outside. He didn't resist. He didn't fight and struggle. He surrendered and said, okay, Lord, essentially, thy will be done. Let this unfold in its right and perfect way. When we resist, we give it more energy. We give it more attention. And then, number 4, rest in that one pointed certainty that my God is able, your God is able to deliver all, to deliver you. And then remember the words. We did it in our opening statement. I invite you to turn back to the opening statement. My soul is unthreatened by any condition. My thoughts unfold in an orderly way, and my actions follow my thoughts. Together, my soul is unthreatened by any condition. My thoughts unfold in an orderly way, and my actions follow my thoughts.